Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice. Today, we're going to be talking about how to see where you're losing money, revenue, and profit. I wrote down a lot of stories from experience here, so I'm going to go through a lot of this, but many of us were trying to solve the revenue per visit problem, or we see that our revenues are down over time, or we're feeling the effects of inflation. For example, we know since 2019 through today, most recent numbers are that there's been 32.5% in inflation. Much of that has come by way of education costs, directly affects us as private practice owners because we're trying to juggle declining or flat reimbursements with increased costs. So how do we solve this problem? How do we look at the puzzle? Where do we look first? I want to talk about that. For most of us, when we're trying to solve revenue, we will look at metrics. If you're like me or any other practice owner that I look at, it's very easy to get lost. We go to our EMR, we go to our billing system, our revenue software, and we see that, okay, here's our average revenue per visit. This is what my AR looks like. This is what my AR buckets look like over 60 days, personal payments, this insurance company A, insurance company B. And we look at these numbers, these statistical numbers, metrics that really give us a general sense of what's going on in our practice. There is a better way. And again, I want to share several stories with you about how looking ultimately solves that problem. Let's take a common example. So most of us are clinicians. Let's say we were looking at their shoulder. We're diagnosing their shoulder, and I'm working here with Yehi, and Yehi says that something's wrong with her shoulder. So I take a look at that. Now I can take range of motion, strength, I can do special tests, and that gives me an idea of what's going on at the cellular level, at a smaller level, more granular level within her shoulder tissue. Within the shoulder tissue, we have the entire musculoskeletal system, the neuromuscular system, right? So she might have a cervical issue that's leading to impingement of the nerves that supply the muscles in the shoulder, the rotator cuff muscles, and all the deltoid, the other supporting structures there as well. So you get that idea, right? As a diagnostician, when somebody comes in and I'm taking a look at their shoulder, I get a general sense of what's going on. I can't specifically say from my clinical test as a physical therapist in this case that I know that, he has this type of, let's call it a slap lesion, or, some sort of impingement syndrome, or like I can take an educated guess, but I can't know exactly what is going on. Within business, unless I had further diagnostic imaging like an MRI or musculoskeletal ultrasound, those other more advanced tests. It's the same thing with our business. And looking at metrics or a sheet that is generated will give us a sense of overall, but we're missing that granular picture the same way as if we're, flying blind without an MRI or other diagnostic imaging and looking at the shoulder. You can have a pretty good idea of what's going on, but it doesn't surpass looking at a granular level. I'll share specifically how we solve that here. Why would we want to do that? Looking solves a lot of problems. Auditing, getting in and seeing how our processes and systems are working, because most of us as managers, as clinical directors, as practice owners, we will listen to what people say in terms of what's going on. Once a week, I get on with our marketing team here at Madden & Gilbert PT, and I say, how are we doing in these areas? And most of the time, the answers will fall into the bucket of good, okay, could be doing better, but that doesn't necessarily tell me exactly what is going on. For example, I can look at our overall new patient number for all 7 clinics at the same time, but that's not the same as breaking it down per clinic, breaking it down into the 5 different pathways and looking at where patients are actually coming from, whether it be reactivation, word of mouth referrals, physician referrals, partner referrals, or cold traffic marketing. It's not the same as, let's say we're hosting a workshop and we just spent $1,500, invested $1,500 promoting that workshop, and we had 3 people come out of that workshop. That's a fairly low number for us. If I were to audit there, if I were to look what's going on, I could, one, go into our breakthrough software and listen to a call or two and make sure that conversions were okay there. I could also look at a recording of the workshop presentation itself. And, so that is a more granular level than just looking at metrics. The next thing and this is probably the most applicable answer for us as we're looking at thinking about this as clinicians. From time to time, we've had clinicians on board that were seeing, we'll call it the lion's share of evals, new patients that were coming through, and they just weren't getting plan of care completions, right? So they had drop off. And we would see that in the visit numbers where their new patients were really high, but their visit numbers were very low. And, some clinicians will justify that in, I'm an amazing clinician and I just get everybody better and I can fix everybody, in one or two visits. And then when we look at it on a closer level, on a single patient level, more granular level, we can see, well, people were dropping off. They forgot their schedule book and were never coming back in, or they were waiting to see their work schedule where they were traveling for a few days and they just never called back to schedule in. So one of the ways that we'll remedy that, and I learned to solve it, is I would just go through and sit through an eval with a clinician who was struggling with plan of care completion graduation rate for their patients. And typically what we would do is we would find one or two things that the clinician was saying unconsciously during the eval process, the examination process, where they were just really invalidating themselves as a clinician. So if I'm the clinician in this case, and again, he will be our wonderful volunteer, I would be going through our tests, and I got to the point of I'm presenting the plan of care, and I say to Yehi, well, it looks like here that you have a very high copay, where you have a high deductible, and therapy is expensive. What we're going to do is I typically recommend that you schedule out for 12 visits, but because you have a $75 copay or a $5,000 deductible, what we can do is I'll see you once a week for the next 4 weeks, right? So basically all of the authority, celebrity expertise that Yehi was seeking for the treatment of whatever her condition is and the treatment services that she was looking for, I just got rid of everything there, completely got rid of it. And I invalidated that viewpoint for her that, I understand what I'm doing and that I can solve this for her. That would be one way. And I've been through this enough times where sitting in with clinicians, I can see that, right? We can't really put a recorder in the room or something else that violates compliance, ethics, everything else across the board. The easiest way is just to go into the room and listen to what's going on there. Another example is we had a clinician who was overwhelmed, and it came in the guise of, work-life balance, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And I had worked with one of the other directors and trying to help this clinician, and I just couldn't understand it. It usually ended fairly poorly. And eventually we got to the point where it was, I don't have enough time to do documentation. We looked at the schedule and it was a 40-hour work week. I think this clinician saw maybe 33 visits in the week. I was like, wow, that's less than one an hour. You should have a ton of time to be finishing your notes. Let's take a look at what's going on. One day I just walked into the clinic unannounced and walked over to the podium and started going through the medical records. I think up until that point in the day, they had seen, I believe, 7 patient visits, 0 documentation done, no flow sheets, no subjective, objective findings, assessment plan. And I know for a fact that there was objective findings going on because they were written on a sticky note, but rather than enter and document immediately at the time of the visit, we were pushing everything off until the end of the day and then trying to think our way through the notes. So only found that by looking, auditing once again. A couple more stories here, then I'll come back to how to solve this for revenue. Another time, very early in my private practice career, we noticed our income was down fairly significantly, again, just by pulling the EMR report, looking at the metrics. And I think it was 2 or 3 years in. And I was like, wow, what is going on here? Our AR isn't increasing, but our revenue is about 50% of where I would think it should be. And what's going on? And I was talking with our billing person, and the numbers just weren't adding up. And I said, just pick a date, any date. And she picked a date, and I said, okay, walk me through the process, show me exactly what you do in our EMR and our billing software to submit a claim. And she did, and she was like, oh, actually, I hadn't submitted this one yet, and it was maybe 60 days before. So she hadn't submitted a claim from 60 days ago. And I said, how do you know that? And she said, well, this little mark within our EMR, it's not blue, which means it's submitted, it's white, which means that it's not submitted yet. And I was like, oh, well, they're actually on the same day, there's another white one. And we ended up working our way through this process. And within a 90-day period, there were, I think, 162 claims that had not been submitted yet. So fairly devastating for our income in a young practice. And the only way that I ever would have found that was not listening to what she was telling me or talking with the insurance company or going, to another location, but it was actually getting into our EMR and our revenue cycle software and having her show me how she does a single bill, a single charge. And yeah, so that was another one. Lots of other examples here. One time we had this was a really bad story. Also early on, not a great time, but we had a receptionist who was very upset because all of our receptionists keep their own cash envelopes. And she was emotional, crying. And I very much trusted this person because she babysat me when I was like 6 months old. So I've known her my entire life, very much trusted her. And she was super emotional, crying, and she had $15 in her cash envelope. And she said, I should have $75 in my envelope. I don't understand what's going on. So anyhow, we went into the EMR, and the EMR actually said that she should have $15 in her envelope. And I said, why are you thinking you should have 75? And she said, I actually wrote down the 3 people who I collected copays from today, and I normally keep whatever, $10 or $15. And she said, these are the 3 that I collected. So we went into those 3 patient records, and we saw that, yes, in fact, earlier in the day, there was a log that she had collected the copays. We also saw that another team member who worked within our reception had gone in and reversed those payments. And what was happening is not Patricia, that was actually the name of the receptionist. And I see Patricia's on here. That's kind of crazy. But Patricia was the receptionist that I trusted that babysat me growing up. And
It wasn't me though. No.
and it was not you, I promise. But yeah, so we went in and we looked, and yeah, and our Patricia did everything that she was supposed to do, and she caught it by just keeping a separate ledger. And when we went in, and what was happening is we had a receptionist who was going in reversing charges on copays and deductible patient payments. And again, this is like 15 years ago, so it's not that recent. But what was happening is she was going in and she was taking the money herself. And that was devastating. She had been doing it for 3 years, very small amounts. Started off as, I think in the very beginning, it was $10 a week, so minimal amount. And then it ramped up. Over the course of 3 years, it ended up being more than $10,000. So lost, not only was it devastating that somebody stole from us. And by the way, we got every cent of that back. She wrote a check, oddly, for the full amount of everything that we found in the audit by looking at 3 years of records. We went through that experience. She wrote a check for the full amount to avoid really legal action and going to jail, criminal charges. So that was pretty wild. It wasn't a plea deal or anything. It was just, that's how the district justice handled it. We really didn't have too much say in it once she wrote the check for the full amount. But we never would have caught that if we weren't willing to go in again and look and see on a granular level, on a single patient case basis, what was actually happening. And the other thing that I'll say is there are many times as an owner, as a manager, as a director, you get this little gut feeling that like something's not quite right here. And you're looking at the metrics and everything feels right. And the thing to do every single time is to go in and look. And before I get to how to do this with revenue, I have one more very positive story for you.
Before we continue with this episode, here's a word about our course, Profitability Under Pressure.
What are the 4 ways practice owners are increasing their revenue per visit in today's market? Chad Madden here, introducing you to the Profitability Under Pressure program. This is a 90-day masterclass designed to help you build a financial system in your private practice to improve your revenue per visit and your bottom line profit margin. Many practice owners like you are facing declining reimbursements and increasing operational expenses. It's more expensive to provide care. This makes it harder to maintain the financial health of the practice. The Profitability Under Pressure program compiles the processes working for practice owners today into one system to help you increase profit margins, regain your time, and help more people in your community. With our program, you'll learn how to conduct a Profit Leak Audit, how to create a plan for profit, and how to use the 4 profit levers to increase your revenue. Plus, you'll enjoy a complimentary 90-day trial of our patient demand software and access to our exclusive Insider Circle community. Don't just take my word for it. Hear from practice owners like Lance Gross, who added $1.1 million to his bottom line, and Peg Gray, who got her finances under control after 4 decades in practice, or Jeff Gersh, who saved time by getting the cheat sheet to increase profitability. Don't let this opportunity slip through your fingers. Apply today for the Profitability Under Pressure program and start increasing your profits by $10,000 or more in just 90 days. Click the link below to join the waitlist now. Secure a more stable financial future for your practice. Apply now and join the ranks of successful PT practice owners who have transformed their businesses with our program. Apply today.
Thank you for listening this far. Now back to the episode.
A few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, we had so every week, every Wednesday, with our marketing team here at the private practice, we take a look at the metrics. All 7 of our offices are on the same schedule for workshops, and 4 workshops in a row at our Hershey location, 100% of people who attended scheduled an appointment and converted over to a plan of care. Our director there is Jan Grove. Jan is amazing. Not only an amazing clinician, awesome director, great partner, and apparently she was a very good presenter. We looked at this and I talked with our marketing team, people who were in the room, and I said, listen, we need to understand what Jan's doing differently because she is absolutely crushing it here at our Hershey location with the workshops. That's 4 in a row where 100% of people have converted over to a plan of care. What is she doing different? Now, egotistically, I've done 250 plus workshops, both hosted them within our clinic in-house and then also out in the community. The first workshop I ever did was in 2000. So 24 years of workshops. I've taught this now to over 2,000 practices, 11 countries internationally. We've taught workshops absolutely everywhere. And our marketing team, I said, what is Jan doing different? They said, we swear she's doing exactly the exact formula that you lay out. She's following the script. She does all 7 or 8 points. She uses the worksheet, the whiteboard, same exact thing you're doing. She's not doing anything different at all. I was like, there's no way. Like she figured something else out that is above and beyond. I went to Jan and said, what are you doing different? Absolutely nothing. And I knew that there was a best practice there, that there was something that I hadn't seen myself and that I hadn't heard anybody else do, but she was doing something different. And I said, okay, record, just record a workshop on the iPhone, on the iPad. Let me take a look at it. Let's see what's going on here. And so I get the recording. I fast forward to the last 5 minutes. And what Jan did was unbelievable, something that I had never seen before. She walked around the room at the end of the workshop and talked with every single person individually, addressing them by their first name, going through their worksheet with them, and walking them out on an individual basis to schedule. It was absolutely amazing. And our conversations were great around very patient-centered, not, I'm a great clinician, I have a DPT, I teach other therapists all over the country. She never did anything like that. She just had very intense focus on each person individually and said, okay, why don't you follow me? And we're going to go out here and schedule an appointment. It was unreal. So then obviously we documented that and then started sharing that with our other therapists and now other practice owners as well. So when you're auditing, you're not only looking for things that are going wrong, right? Like I gave lots of examples here, not billing or, pocketing copays or whatever, whatever. You're not only looking for things that are going wrong to correct for diagnosis, you're also looking things that are going very well, that what you can do is create best practices, better processes, better systems for yourself. Now, how do we do that with revenue, right? Can't I just look at my AR? Can't I just look at the revenue coming in and that's all I really need to do? Well, the big lesson here is you need to be able to do it on a granular level. And I guarantee for most practices that are insurance-based, on some level, you are delivering service that you've either done and haven't billed for. Underbilling, number one thing. Kelly Brown, Prediction Health, on the podcast here, Grow Your Practice podcast, had shared with us, underbilling, one of the biggest violations that they find, one of the biggest shortfalls that they find in auditing every single record with AI, right? So underbilling. But in other cases, you're providing care that is never reimbursed. And the way to do that, and what we teach in our Profitability Under Pressure course, is a process called the Profit Leak Audit, where you're going through on a granular level, you're looking at a cluster of patients individually and seeing, here's the care that we provided, this is what we billed, and this is the revenue that we realized. It's very systematic. And the first time I did this was out of necessity. We have been working for 12, 18 months. Each of our directors, my partner here, Mike Gilbert, we were all wrestling with this issue of declining reimbursements staying flat, and we couldn't really solve it, right? We saw this number declining over time. I think we went from a high of 102, and then it was 98, and then 97, and then 95, and then 93, 88. And we were like, what is going on here? And, it was explained away with billing, and we were switching MAR systems, and really it was same EMR, but different software, and it was all this other stuff. And when we did, and so here's what I did. Sat down with our CFO, Tracy Doherty, and I said, Tracy, pick a date. Like we've got to look at a more granular level than just our metrics. Pick any date. And she picked a date. Off the top of my head, I believe it was May 22nd or May 26th. I said, okay, we have 7 clinics. Pick any clinic. I don't care which one you pick. And she picked one. And I said, okay, so pick any therapist, any clinician. She picked a clinician. And then I said, okay, they started at 8 a.m. and we're going to go through, and this person had treated a 10-hour day that day, 8 to 7. And we went through every single patient. And what we saw is that we were giving away care. We were giving away a lot of care. And we also had some other revelations out of that. And what that helped us do was create a better plan. Ideally, when you go through this process and when you learn the Profit Leak Audit process, one of the biggest pitfalls is you can do it for your clinicians. What's way more effective, significantly more effective, so we have right now 53, 54 clinicians. What we did next is, after I did this, then we went to each of our directors and showed them how to do the process, and then showed them how to look. And then each one of our directors got with each one of their clinicians, in our case, their DPTs or PTAs, and showed them how to go through and do the Profit Leak Audit. Very effective for us, game-changing. And what it did is, rather than us going around to each clinician and say, hey, you're doing 5 and 6 unit visits and the insurance company's only paying for 3. Or we had a very bad payer that was, I think, $38.75 a visit, and just, yes, absolutely brutal. And what we did is the clinicians saw this and they could adjust accordingly. So rather than us telling them with a report and saying, like, here's what you're doing and here's how you're falling short, now they look and they could see for themselves. So as you're listening to this and you're thinking about doing this exercise and learning this exercise for your company, it's best, especially if you have more than one clinician, that your clinicians see this for themselves, and you're not doing like a I told you so or top-down management. This is within our Profitability Under Pressure program. It's one of the first, I actually believe it's in the first lesson that we teach. Extremely powerful exercise. I then turn around and shared this with the owners that we work with at Breakthrough. Lance Gross, GTS Therapy in Arkansas, they did this, and Lance at our one of our recent events in Orlando had shared that this exercise alone, going through this, it took him 90 minutes and it was worth $1.1 million to his practice in 2024. Now, they have 17 locations. They're a large practice. But for most of us, even if we're 1% of what GTS is, seeing 1% of the visits, that's 11K per year just by going through this exercise. We have another owner, Dave Bender, who's down in Baltimore. And Dave heard Lance from stage talking about this, going through this Profit Leak Audit. Dave then went to his practice. I believe they have 2 or 3 locations in the Baltimore area. I'm thinking they just opened a third or just opened a fourth. Sorry, Dave, if I don't have that right. But nonetheless, Dave went and he said, when I come to these events, I'm looking for a $100,000 idea. And he said, we went back. I heard Lance's story, heard about the Profit Leak Audit. I had the form forever, had never implemented it, went back, now had motivation to do this because I heard Lance's story and what it was worth to his practice, and then went back and it was worth 140K to my practice. So it wasn't worth 1.1 million, but was worth 140K. And I think for most of us, we can recognize that we have a low payer. We can recognize that somebody's capped, right? They're capping us at 3 units and we could deliver 12 units of service and we're going to be capped at 3. Until you can look at and figure out and see what your clinicians are doing and what's happening with the billing and your actual revenue process, it's very, very difficult to solve. And it would be, let's say, go back to Yehi, our example at the beginning of the top of the hour here. And if she had a labral tear and I was going through and I just completely missed it, right? I'm trying to solve something. And in the end, I could end up wasting a lot of her time and money and resources trying to solve for, let's say, impingement syndrome or a cervicothoracic issue with a misdiagnosis. And it's the same thing that we're doing repeatedly with our revenue is we're misdiagnosing. We're thinking, it's if we just bill 97530 instead of 97110, that's going to solve everything. But until we do that audit, until we look at what is actually going on, it's very difficult to solve. I do want to say one more thing that is a pitfall. As clinicians, most of us, there's 2 things that we're balancing in practice all the time. One is relationships. So relationships with our patients, relationships with our team members, relationships with the community. Most of us are very good at that. We're highly oriented towards caring about people. The other end of the business equation is production and keeping our doors open and looking at metrics and seeing what's going on. Most of us need help there. And I know for me, in the beginning of my private practice journey, that was a brutal awakening that I just couldn't spend all my time over in relationships and not have balance and somehow hope to keep my doors open. Your clinicians are the same way, right? So if you're just throwing numbers at them the same way that they're looking at, the same way that you're looking at your numbers traditionally, and you're never like putting your arm around them and say like, hey, Trisha, let's take a look at this together. Let's see what's going on here. Here's the Profit Leak Audit. Let's walk through this together, see what's going on, and we're going to solve this, right? In the end, it's going to result in a more stable working environment for your clinicians, for your front desk, for your billing, for your marketing team, for your whole team in general. And you're going to be able to keep your doors open and provide high quality of care to your patients within your community, make a difference in your community. But Patricia, did you have any questions?
I think that's going to be really helpful for our practice because I feel like there are multiple reasons why we're not at profitability. And this will really help us do a deeper dive.
For everybody else who's listening, or if you're watching this on the stream, we do have another program coming up that's about to start, another class. It's called Profitability Under Pressure. We go through this process. Really, we go through quite a bit. We go through the Profit Leak Audit. We go through the Profit Planner. We go through the 4 profit levers. It's essentially 12 processes that we're seeing that are working in today's market for private practices, everything from marketing for profit to adding cash-based service, increasing lifetime patient value, improving your insurance payer mix, which includes renegotiating reimbursements, et cetera. We go through that, how to reassess, what metrics to watch, how to look at metrics. Pretty robust program, getbreakthrough.com/apply. to get more details on the Profitability Under Pressure program. Getbreakthrough.com/apply. This is for private practice owners only, but we're really looking for people who implement. We just wrapped up our 4th Profitability Under Pressure program. Great group of owners. We just had our final call last week, and they were sharing their wins about how they were renegotiating contracts, adding cash-based service, getting their team on the same page, and with regards to profitability, where they just didn't feel like they were barking numbers at their teams. I hope you can join us for that. Otherwise, thank you for tuning in to Grow Your Practice Live here, and I'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
What are the 4 ways practice owners are increasing their revenue per visit in today's market? Chad Madden here, introducing you to the Profitability Under Pressure program. This is a 90-day masterclass designed to help you build a financial system in your private practice to improve your revenue per visit and your bottom line profit margin. Many practice owners like you are facing declining reimbursements and increasing operational expenses. It's more expensive to provide care. This makes it harder to maintain the financial health of the practice. The Profitability Under Pressure program compiles the processes working for practice owners today into one system to help you increase profit margins, regain your time, and help more people in your community. With our program, you'll learn how to conduct a Profit Leak Audit, how to create a plan for profit, and how to use the 4 profit levers to increase your revenue. Plus, you'll enjoy a complimentary 90-day trial of our patient demand software and access to our exclusive Insider Circle community. Don't just take my word for it. Hear from practice owners like Lance Gross, who added $1.1 million to his bottom line, and Peg Gray, who got her finances under control after 4 decades in practice, or Jeff Gersh, who saved time by getting the cheat sheet to increase profitability. Don't let this opportunity slip through your fingers. Apply today for the Profitability Under Pressure program and start increasing your profits by $10,000 or more in just 90 days. Click the link below to join the waitlist now. Secure a more stable financial future for your practice. Apply now and join the ranks of successful PT practice owners who have transformed their businesses with our program. Make sure you apply today.